Boom! There it is, ladies and gents. We're ready to rock and roll. We got a coach on here to help you grow your business. He's been working with some big companies. So if you're the little guy getting started, this is probably a good episode to get some advice on. Let's get this one on the road. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, ladies and gents, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to take your business to the next level with the help of a highly successful business ownership and marketing consultant. Our guest is an expert with over 2 decades of experience working with businesses of all shapes and sizes and industries, from Silicon Valley startups to Fortune 500 companies. He has a track record of taking businesses from barely scraping by to making high 6 and 7 figures. So he's here to share his secrets of success with us. So let's welcome to the show the business growth expert, Mr. Joel Bauer. And
Awesome.
Now the party can start, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a solid intro, man. I love it.
That's it, man. We're having fun here. I got high school kids here, so I got to keep them entertained as well.
You got to keep them entertained. That makes sense.
All right, Joel. My first question for you, man. What is it that you do? If you had to explain it to like a 5th grader, if you had to make it as easy as possible for somebody to understand, what do you do for a living?
So what I do is I've been obsessed with business in all levels, and I love entrepreneurs. And I want to find any strategy I can to get in the hands of entrepreneurs to help them go to that next level, not be burnout, not hitting plateaus, but really take it to the next level. And I've been obsessed about that for 20 years or more, actually, but 20 years at this point for sure. And if that's what I want to do, I want to give them every advantage, every tactic, every skill, of true knowledge of how industries move over time, and so with that all combined, it's not a cookie cutter thing. I can't give them like 5 steps to whatever, but I know where they're at. I've been there, and I know how to take them to that next level. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. You've been at this for 20 years. Normally in the past, I'd say the last 100 years, 20 years made a pretty big stride. But for us, especially in this generation today, the last 20 years it's like light speed, exponential growth in different areas, from marketing to the way businesses operate to even employees being in the office. What's that been like as a coach, helping these business owners getting started in a completely different world than maybe their parents did in the past?
Yeah, I mean, it is surreal. And it's so weird to think back, because what I know now and what I generally do in my conversations with businesses is so much different. I used to do mail order, like where we'd have direct mail, like flyers. And that was the only way. There was no Facebook ads. There was no YouTube. There was no like Google to like advertise on, which is like the go-to places now. And so I actually had my first breakout success by learning this new thing, AdSense. And what's cool about it is that it forced me to kind of shift often. So I had to see where I was stuck or where I was trapped in my thinking, because the tools were changing so fast that you couldn't just hold on to what was already working. It went from like where cell phones weren't a normal thing to where every like 3-year-old has one now for some reason. And it keeps expanding like that. But because it forced me to go, I have to learn this completely new thing and this completely new thing and this completely new thing. You start seeing that there's trends that live outside that there is things that no matter what generation you're in that are consistently working in business that have to be applied to the tools, not just let the tools dictate how we grow our businesses.
I know it's corny to say, but those are the fundamentals, right? Essentially, This is how we operate. I remember my first business. I did marketing in this thing called the Penny Saver. It's basically the junk mail that you get like on Tuesdays that show up to your house, right? We had mailers that went in there. We used to advertise in this thing called the Yellow Pages, which most of my students probably have never seen one before in their life. They might know what it is, but never seen one before in their life. We used to advertise with radio pop-ups, so the DJs would come over to our store and like do little show stuff there. It was crazy. You talk about cell phones. I remember watching Saved by the Bell, and Zach Morris pulls out like a brick-sized
the brick
phone that he used to use. Yeah, and all it was a phone, and the crappy service on it was just that. It wasn't very good. But today, things have like continuously advanced, and some of those fundamentals that you talk about are still core to this day, whether you're using ChatGPT and AI to draft your marketing material, or you're writing it yourself and creating your own landing pages. What are some of those fundamentals that you feel have continued to live on generation after generation?
One of the key ones, and you'll see it in pretty much every walk of life where people are becoming the best of the best or really growing, or it's the ability to take failure and use it as it's only a lesson to go, hey, what else can I do? So at the core, like over and over again, we're so afraid of this thing called failure that we stop ourselves dead in our tracks. Even when all of our instincts, all of our gut is saying, hey, go for it. This is it. This will work. This will go. You need to figure out how to, regardless of that fear, got to go. And, because everything else can be solved from there. If you are doing the best of what you can imagine to do right now, and you're taking that action on it, you get a massive amount of feedback. And if you can keep doing that, you will beat the competition day in and day out. And it's just a matter of time before you're one of those key players. So, I mean, that crucial across the board. Like, I don't care if someone's making, high 7 figures at this point or multiple 7 figures across, tons of businesses. We still all run into that same game. Our fears are just different. There are different levels of fear, but there's still, if you do not learn that strategy to bowl through them, it doesn't matter how big you are, you'll suffer.
I'm going to be emceeing an event on March 2nd. It's called Evolve Your Brand or Go Extinct. And the whole idea behind it is you got to show up and be prepared to make content, to be uncomfortable. And I think when you discuss that fear, that's part of that dilemma that we have today. Like, I remember listening to Gary Vee. The whole reason why I have a podcast is because he said, if you're in business, you need to be creating content. And I found that for me, podcasting was the medium that I was going to use to create content. But there's so many people that fear getting behind the camera, speaking behind the microphone, doing those things to make their brand even exist, yet nevertheless, like, grow from there just to be existent. What are you telling people when it comes to content creation and how important or vital it is for their business growth?
So this reminds me of back when I got my chops in sales originally. There was, it was my business. There was no one else doing it. So I had to figure out pretty much everything. And I had a script that I got from a mentor. I was in real estate at the time and I was starting to grow a team. And I got the script and I was told exactly, but I was like, I remember stalling, and I got on a call with my coach, and he's like, hey, this is how you got to think about it. Yeah. Your first call, the first person that picks up, you guys are equal. The second person, you have 2 experiences. The third person, you have 3 experiences. And he's like, by the time you get to 10 to 20, you're an expert at what's about to happen. They're not. And that always held to me. That was one of those things that, like, when I'm starting something new, whether it's like throwing on the camera and recording something, I have to remember, the first one's going to suck, but the second one, I'm better than most people in the world that won't even do it. Then by the third one, by 100, I'm unstoppable. I as long as I keep like wanting to get better and wanting to figure it out, then eventually those nerves go away. I start like nailing some things. I start getting a good feel for it. Hopefully I'm putting it out there so the real world's actually responding to me and I can grow from that feedback too. But that's the thing, is like, you're in a game where you're so worried at first that you're not an expert yet, but you're not going to be, but you will be faster than they expect. People talk about like the 10,000 hours. That's to be a master at something. That's like to be the 1% in the world. To be good at something better than most, it's a handful of times. It's crazy how fast it happens.
Yeah, the difference is not that much. I mean, literally, you're episode 1097. By this point, I've gotten really good at this podcasting thing, right? Like, it's gotten it's second nature to me. And when people come on the show, it's light years ahead of other shows that they've been on, simply for that exact fact that you said. I just had a lot of at bats. And when it comes to sales, same thing. The reason why car salesmen, door-to-door salesmen tend to have much better careers when it comes to sales is because they just had more at bats. They just knocked on more doors. They spoke to more customers. They faced that fear, but that fear could also be crippling. And I wanted to ask you, because as a coach, you have to deal with probably the most difficult person every single one of your clients probably has, and that's themselves, their own mindset, their own imposter syndrome. When you have people that are
yelling at you, telling you how horrible you are and how much you suck at this particular thing, but it's not anybody in real life. It's your own voice in your head. How do
Yeah.
you help them deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, so that usually starts with perspective. It's weird, just like this, like you don't know when you become really good at something. You know, you're just afraid of taking that first swing. Even people who are great at it, that have been in business for a while, you know, they kind of lose track of where they really are at. You know, how much have they overcome? What have they already accomplished? So instead of like trying to rely on going that next level or dealing with this person that's saying crap they shouldn't be saying, you know, and letting it get in your head, if it's you or someone like on social right now, you know, which is rampant, like you post anywhere, you know, as long as you're consistent, eventually you're going to get someone that says the meanest crap you can imagine. And so our ability to deal with it, you know, is has to be very high. And so the first thing we do is like, hey, well, what's really going on? What have you overcome like this? What have you done in the past? Even if it's not similar, how many times have you gotten to a wall and said, hey, I don't know if I can, you know, I can tear this thing down or make this thing happen the way I want it to happen. And you did. And so we have to go first look at their hope. You know, where can they rely on what they've already done? And if they, you know, even if that doesn't work, then we go look at comparisons. You know, where are you at versus, you know, most people? Because yeah, you see the, you know, Alex Hormozis of the world, you see the Russell Brunsons of the world. You don't see that guy, you know, the majority of people that are actually lower in many skills than you are if you've been at this for a little while. You know, it doesn't even take long. A whole year can get you ahead of most of them. So when we're in that game, it's you got to get those comparisons. They got to start building some new frames and start seeing this stuff from a different angle. And that usually shakes it up enough that they can go again. You know, not that that's not going to creep in again, because it does. It comes back. So you have to get good at going, okay, cool. This has happened before. What did I do last time? What do I got to do again? And eventually those skills become second nature.
That experience goes a long way. I remember watching the movie Catch Me If You Can, and in it, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's a con artist, right? But he pretends to be an airline pilot. He pretends to be an English teacher. He pretends to be a doctor. And he pulls it off. And when they asked him, I mean, they asked the guy that he portrayed in real life, and they asked him, how'd you get away with teaching like an entire semester of school? Like, you weren't educated in this field. He's like, I just was one chapter ahead of what the class was, and that's all I needed to be. And I think that same perspective is what you're talking about here. You know, a lot of times the imposter syndrome is because we're comparing ourselves to the Alexes of the world and you know, all the greats that are out there. But we're still right here. We may not be that high up, but we still are at least a couple chapters ahead of the people that we can help.
Yeah.
So, you know, putting ourselves in that perspective makes a big difference. You work with small businesses and you've worked with all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. What kind of similarities or similar problems do they face with? And are you kind of dealing with that same mindset, whether it's the small business owner or the Fortune 500 people?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot going on in culture right now for comparison constantly. Like we're always measured against some impossible standard, and honestly, not even a standard that you can get a full look in. You like even you look at someone like Alex Hormozi, seems like a solid person. You don't know what his life looks like on a daily basis. You know, I remember thinking like, I mean, one of my heroes growing up was Tony Robbins, and, you know, bigger than still is to this day. I mean, he's bigger than life, and then I would get like every once as I got more into his material, I started hearing these little stories about his life. And I was like, I don't want that, you know, like I don't want that at all. And so like literally what he's willing to do, I don't have to go that direction, and I can still learn from him and go the direction I want. But my life is mine. Like whatever I build of it, it's over here. I can't, it's not easy to compare it against anybody else's, you know, unless you can fully live in their life. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter what size that people are always looking at the comparison, unless you are the number one dog. You know, it's rare that you're not looking at somebody else going, why can't we do that? When you don't even see what's going on inside that business or inside that person's mind. And so, yeah, at every level, there is that constant comparison, even to the point where people stop, they give up on their goals without even knowing it, what they really want, what they want their life to feel like, and just start copying the person above them. And you know, someone that's actually like, you know, what a great example is like social media right now. You know, there's many experts that are everywhere. And so if you go, hey, I want to be like Gary Vee, I want to be like Russell Brunson, and you start going and trying to be on every platform that they're on, you're done. You don't have time to be good at any of them. You're just throwing crap out there. And so, you know, there is an advantage for being early in the cycle. And you said like the 2 steps ahead, you know, that is a perfect break from this. You have, if you're early in the stage and you're just moving up, Russell Brunson can't afford to help everybody. And in some cases, he's forgotten, you know, the Grant Cardones and the Hormozis of the world have forgotten what it was really like to be at the beginning. Now, if you just figured this out, you can help a lot of people, because those are the people, A, they can get access to you. They probably can afford you in a way they can't afford a Russell Brunson in their house. They get to talk to a real person that just figured it out, that gets their plight. And so I actually think there's a massive unfair advantage if you really use it. And that is, you're right here in it now. It wasn't something you did years ago and you figured out and you haven't had to think about. It happened last week, or last month. And, I almost try to find clients that are outside my reach, that I really have not been entirely where they are, because those are the ones that force me to grow, because I will be up at night making sure I have the answers they need, period. I'll call in favors. I'm finding everything I can. That stretch is what it's allowed me to keep growing and work with companies of all sizes. But I always use that advantage.
It's kind of funny, that saying of, when you meet your heroes, it's not always the same as what you expected them to be, because what you're talking about exactly is it. You see glimpses and clips of who these people are, but you don't see their entire lifestyle. It'll kind of make you really think about what it is that you want to do. Meeting heroes can be that detrimental, kind of put you down. On the flip side, once you start learning about what these guys are doing, you start to realize that a lot of them run in the same circles. A lot of them are part of the same masterminds, and you start to see similarities in their marketing approaches, in their offers, in their proposals that they're putting out, in the programs that they're offering, because they know the power of working with somebody that can help elevate them. They know the power of having mentorships, of having these masterminds in place. When you're talking to your clients, is it something that you really have to kind of get across, the importance of having coaching and mentoring, or is it, or when they approach you, they're already ready to make that change?
Best clients already do it. It's part, like self-development, growth, seeking out mentors is already a thing. Those are the people that win the fastest. The people that don't have that are there's a troubled foundation that they're missing. And it's just corrected thinking, like you wake up, and everybody has it. We have this little voice in our head that is telling us not to try, to give up, to stop. What if we fail and we're going to look this way? And everybody has that. It's an evolutionary development to make sure we stay alive. So we look for things that we could be afraid of. But the people that succeed just figure out how to work with it. They get used to that. And so they kind of know how to quiet that voice or point it in the right direction, and so with a lot of this, if you don't have that internally, if you haven't built up that habit inside you to go, hey, this is where I'm going. This is why it matters. This is what's important to me. I know I can do it. I got this. Hearing somebody else say those things. Hey, I was at crap. I was in this place that was horrible. I couldn't do anything. And I figured it out, and I had to come through. Hearing those over and over again just breaks up that doubt. And so the more you're kind of feeding your mind with that until you build the habits yourself. And even then it's just supercharged, because not only whatever new idea you go, I like that, how to reinforce it now, but you got to start that somewhere. And if it's not coming from you or the people around you, you got to feed it from somewhere. And so mentors, the right books, audio programs, listening to podcasts, like making sure that good information is going in.
Isn't it funny? I mean, what you were describing there is your ability to kind of be vulnerable, right? Like to realize that I need help. I don't have all the answers, and I'm looking for a little bit of help. And that experience coupled with that vulnerability, isn't that also the same messaging that seems to work really well for your marketing campaigns? Like, dude, are you going through XYZ? I was there too. This is how I transform my life. And if you're interested, here's my call to action. Like hit me up right here. Like the same messaging applies, because our nature is in the same way. When you finally realize that you need help, it's because you're going through a particular problem. So you reach out to get the solution you're looking for. And it parallels those marketing campaigns. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. That comes down to, so at this point, I think between my wife and I, we've spent probably 1.2 million something in education, training, mentorship programs, masterminds. We have put our money where our mouth is. We believe in this as a core. It's our profession, and I consistently, what I've seen is like, people always think it's going to be this tactic. Like you're going to get this next trick. You're going to, be able to do that. And that's like the early stage people. But then when you get into these higher end programs, what you realize, there's really two key elements. It's reassurance and motivation. Over and over again, you're getting people to just hope and believe again, because it's so easy not to, and so at the highest level, it doesn't matter where you are. Like, person might be making 10 million, but they're in a room suddenly with someone that's making 100 million. They suddenly have to break up some of their reality. And so at every level, we've just got to have a way to make sure that we're getting the right reassurance and the right motivation as a great coach, or for yourself if you're trying to get yourself to that next level, because that's really what it is. Like, you don't have all the answers. You're not perfect. The expectation that you're going to nail it every time and every word out of your mouth is going to be awesome, and every program that you launch is going to be great, and every course you create is going to change lives. That's insane. It's an insane amount of pressure, and it actually more often stops people from doing anything. The idea is that you got to do the best you can, and then you will learn the things that you need to get to that next level. So right now, the biggest thing you can do is, you don't have all the answers right now, but you have to have the confidence that you'll go get them, that you'll go find them, you'll go track them down. If something stops, you don't give up. You go, somebody's figured this out. I got to go find them, and keep going. That reassurance in your life that it's possible, it's real, and you can do it. It sounds like rhetoric, but I have seen more people totally lose out on great opportunities in a life they really want by simply thinking they had to be perfect on the first go. How can you? You can't. You're not supposed to look a certain way. You really should look how you look. Like I won over contracts early in my marketing career because I wasn't one of the top agencies. That was me and my freaking partner, Chris. That was it. And we could charge a lot less and we could work a lot harder. And, we started like, we have nothing to lose. And so we started just doing above board programs. Like, hey, if you go work with an agency, every time you ask them for something, you're gonna have to wait 2 weeks. If you call us, you can call me at 8:00 right now. Cause at that point I was hungry and I was ready. Yeah. I put more boundaries on my life now, but at the beginning I could crush out competition and win contracts because I was honest about where we are. It's me and Chris in an apartment. We're going to do everything, and that was the stuff that people try to hide. Like, I want to look like I'm in a professional building and, I have a full team behind me. I was like, screw that. Use your advantages you have. You're starting out, you're scrappy, get at it, do anything it takes. Be so indispensable to them that your contracts will grow. And that's how a lot of our early contracts did. We moved from where we're doing contract after contract to like partnerships and equity shares because we went in there and would be there all the time. It was so weird. Like, we started this and we were like, hey, we're marketing guys, or we're going to help you with social media. And, as we got to know them, what we started finding is it was a lot more their owners, their whole life can affect their business, not just one part of it. So like, it went quickly from how I thought I was doing the logo to I'm talking to them about marital problems or talking about their kids, because that's what's in the way. If they're stressed out about what's going on at home, they're not performing here. And that's why their numbers are tanking, and so I can give them every strategy in the world. I can write the best email that I can imagine, and it wasn't working. And so it just becomes this holistic thing. People need real people to connect with at any level, and so if you're authentic, if you're real, you're being true to who you are, you're showing up, they get to connect to you. It's hard to connect to agency. Agencies don't care. There is some exceptions, but for the most part, agencies don't care about you in the same way because they can't. They have 100 people they have to care about and they're supposed to care about them equally. But if you're starting out and you're a contractor and you do social media, or you do copy, or you build funnels, whatever it is, and you can have that real human touch, you can outperform a lot of these agencies.
Yeah, a lot of your services are just your way in the door, essentially. You said when you go to these trainings, they get a lot of assurance and motivation, and I 100% agree with that. Every time I go to these events, it is a lot of hoorah, a lot of energy, a lot of getting you in the mindset to keep going. And then I kind of revert that back to disciplines and habits, right? Then you got the David Goggins of the world, and he's like, you know what? Stop being a little bitch and just get out there and do what you're supposed to do, because it's the habit that you need to make. And I think it's got to be a combination of both, right? We do need the reassurance. We do need the motivation to get ourselves back on track, because we get distracted really easily. I mean, anything, when we see somebody who's a little bit more successful than us, who's doing something a little bit cooler, when there's a new technology, we can easily get distracted from what we were already good at. So having that motivation and assurance is helpful, but having those disciplines and habits have to be put in place as well. So when you're working with clients, how much of it is it motivation and assurance, and how much of it is it let's get you systematized and processes in place so that, when you are a little distracted, you're not taken away from the fundamentals of your core business.
Yeah. So there's a mix, and I don't see them as separate. That's one thing I keep finding. Like, great marketing says it's one thing. It always says it's one thing. Just do this and everything will be solved. And it's not. Your life is complex and it's crazy, and business just adds level to it. But it also has high reward, high risk, high reward. That's how the game's played. And so the motivation, the reassurance. If you go to do something, let's say you're going to build a habit and you're going to show up and do this, but every day you tell yourself, I don't believe I can actually do it. I don't believe it'll ever work. You will stop doing it, period. So I don't mean reassurance like hoorah, like, I mean, Tony Robbins events are amazing. You go to those, yeah, you're in a different world. It's like a rock concert. It's incredible. I'm talking about the motivation, reassurance just to keep going daily. And that's, that's from having the right mentor or being able to get, talk to yourself differently and start saying, hey, I got this. I figured out harder things. I can go, I can make this happen. Yeah, I don't know, but it's online. There's ways to do it. I just got to go find one that works for me. And, that kind of reassurance, that stuff has to be alive or the habits never get created. And so, so it's kind of in order. If I was looking at these as separate components, the motivation, reassurance gets you to keep going when when you get rocked a little bit, when it doesn't work out perfectly. So if you can do that, if you have that right, you'll build those habits, then you'll get a skill. That skill gets good enough, you can then systemize it. That's how I see the track. So at first I have to make them believe they absolutely can get what they want. Whatever level whatever that next level is, I have to get them to believe they can and they will and they want it. Once we do that, then we can figure out the strategies to start building habits. What do they do daily? Once that's working, because business is difficult. It's not about finding one way to do it and then it's perfect. You have to build it. You have to look at the system. Then when something breaks, you have to fix that. You got to patch this up. Oh, wait, actually, I don't like that outcome. And then once you get all that worked out, then you have this amazing thing. You put blood, sweat, and tears into that can be systemized and then allow you to scale. Then just growth is incredible.
Yeah, and sometimes having that other perspective just makes all the difference in the world, because you might be grinding away at something that is not getting you in the direction that you want to go in, but it's keeping you really busy, right? And so we feel like we're being productive when in essence we're not. We're just turning the wheel here. So having that coach and that mentor to keep you motivated, to keep you on track, to keep you focused on some goals, that is definitely something that people need to have. Speaking of which, we haven't said it throughout the show at all, so I want to make sure we say it at least here at the very end, Joel. If people want to reach out, they want to work with you, they want, what is it that you're offering them, and how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of us is just going to www.owningtheedge.com. On there, we have actually a form to let us know where you're at, what's going on, and see if there is something we can do. We do a lot of creative work. So if, depending on where you're at in the business, we usually can figure out something that makes sense. But my obsession is to help entrepreneurs break free, like just get what they want. I know I've seen it time and time again. When entrepreneurs stop worrying about how to pay the bills, they start changing the world. And it happens all the time. Yeah, there's some outliers that don't, but for the most part, they're hungry, happy, excited people that want to solve problems and want to make it bigger. So just anywhere you reach out, plus our social media channels, free content there. A lot of the thinking that's coming out of, my millions of dollars in spend in education, but also what I'm doing right now with my clients, that gets funneled into our social. So find us on Instagram, find us on YouTube, Joel Bauer Official. That's probably the best place.
Let me ask you a question. You have a lot of mentors that you look up to, a lot of trainings that you've gone to. If you were to recommend for young high school kids, like pick up a book and read this to get your life rolling, what would you recommend to somebody? Maybe it's a training, maybe it's a particular author, maybe it's a specific book. What kind of recommendation would you make?
Well, the first one that I would do, Personal Power by Tony Robbins. I mean, that's just, you got to have some place where you're getting your mindset straight. It's awesome. It's amazing. On a tactical side, like right now, what I think a huge opportunity is, YouTube's about to blow up again. It seems like one of those things that people kind of count out, but it's going to grow, because they basically figured out the hard part, which is they had to balance the user, the creator, and the advertisers in just the right way. And they have this amazing AI that they've been perfecting for years, really nailing that. So I think we're about to see a YouTube explosion. And that's either on the side of actually creating your own channel or making sure you have the skills that can support people who are, because we're going to see massive growth in this. I just see a huge opportunity there. So Daryl Eves' book, The YouTube Formula, is absolutely incredible. He is one of the most talented people on the planet. If you guys don't know who Mr. Beast is, he's constantly consulting with Mr. Beast and every known name on the planet. But this is the guy, like, I think in the next 5 years, everybody's going to know, like, YouTube connected to this guy, and they don't know that. He's just starting to get that momentum and move from consultant to where he's actually creating courses and programs and getting the material out there. So I would definitely hunt down that book, get it, learn everything you can.
Absolutely. Especially for the youngsters. They're like, what do you want to do after high school? I'm going to be a YouTuber.
Yeah,
Great.
be a YouTuber.
Pick up these books and start learning what you need to learn so you can actually be a YouTuber that gets paid versus a YouTuber that just lives on
amazing
YouTube.
skills like writing copy or editing videos or just being able to know how to push content out accurately. That's huge. And it's going to be needed always. You know, what the platforms might change, but those skills don't.
Perfect, man. Hey, real quick before we head out, any final thoughts before we close out today's episode?
No, and this is awesome. I think that there is an unfair advantage really for younger people with less skills. And we always flip it. I have a lot of overhead. I have a lot of crap. I can move a lot. You know, I can't move as fast as I used to be able to. But everybody out there, man, you know, find little things. You find little ways to make revenue. And because cash flow is what actually grows a business. And so if you can find any way to bring that cash flow instead of going, oh no, I'm following my vision, you can start adding that cash flow. You open up choices, you open up opportunities, you open up the ability to invest. And plus you're doing something. So you're learning the skills, you're creating a network, everything that I wish I would have just figured out earlier and just started. You guys have the advantage to do it right now, you know? And so I love that. And I'd love to see the next group of entrepreneurs. All this crap about the next generations are lazy and they don't want to work. Screw that. They don't want to work for somebody else, but they want to make a difference. And I know that. So let's go make it happen.
Yes, you are absolutely right. That's exactly the message that I like to tell these kids. Like, you guys, so many opportunities. School might have let you down a little bit, but it's not the end. It's just the beginning. Life is here to take you on an adventure. You don't even know where it's taking you yet. I mean, I know me personally, when I was in high school, graduating high school, I had no clue what I was going to do. I remember being in my 30s or early 30s, still not knowing what I was going to do. I'm 40 now and I'm like, barely feel like I got a handle on where I'm going. So, you know, you got a lot of opportunity ahead of you. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys check out Joel's page. It's called owningtheedge.com, owningtheedge.com. Check out his stuff. Hope you guys got a lot of information today. Remember, it's your mindset. You got to start right here. Find somebody to help you get that squared away so you have the motivation, you got the discipline, you got the systems in place to be successful. Joe, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. Awesome. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz